Look, another headline on the Australian tomorrow, Albanese savages Greens over Senate housing bill block. Anthony Albanese has launched a blistering attack on the Greens, labelling them hypocrites and accusing them of prioritising political advantage over public housing after the minor party teamed up with the coalition senators to block Labor's signature $10 billion Housing Australia Future Fund. The Prime Minister was well and truly fired up about this blockage in the Senate today. Let's take a look at what he had to say in question time in the House of Representatives.
They want to build their profile, we want to build more homes. Those in that corner, Mr Speaker, they deal in protests, we deal in progress. They see issues to campaign on, we see challenges to act on. But what we had over there, with the Greens teaming up with them, is working to block public housing. This isn't student politics. And instead of hyperventilating like a debating team, you need to bring people together to get things done.
Ollie, I think the Prime Minister's probably a little bit annoyed that their negotiation tactics didn't work. All the sweeteners of that extra $2 billion for social housing within 2 weeks didn't work to get the coalition and the Greens over the line. But this is quite alarming, especially for the government. It's the first, failure of this bill, as essentially as the Senate, the Leader of the Senate and the one representing, the Minister representing the Housing Minister in the Senate said that this could trigger a double dissolution when it finally comes to a vote or is debated again in October. So the government are pretty fired up about this, and understandably so, but really it's their own failing for not negotiating more efficiently.
I think that Albo was watching Ollie Robinson and Usman Khawaja last night in the cricket, and he was fired up and decided to deliver a few of his sledges of his own there in question time. And there's some zingers there. I mean, this is vintage dogfighting from the Prime Minister, and he's a very good performer. I think we forget sometimes, Jenna, how good he is on his feet dancing in the Parliament. But you're right, it's just covering up the failures of the negotiation with the Greens, and that's the problem here, right? Because ultimately, Australia is in the middle of a housing crisis that's getting worse and worse by the day. The failure of national leadership, the failure of the government to be able to negotiate a deal with the Greens is going to punish Australians further and further, particularly vulnerable Australians who have been on public housing waiting lists for years and years. They're getting longer and longer now. There is no solution in sight. And this is a failure of the government. They can say, sure, threaten a double dissolution. They can call the Greens for what they are, but they rely on the Greens to get through all sorts of pieces of legislation in the Senate. I don't think Adam Bandt takes this lying down. He would absolutely love the attention, Jenna, the fact the PMs had a crack at the Greens, because it will just steal their resolve. So this is a political headache for the Prime Minister and the government. Sure, go to an election, call it on. But I don't think he wants to do that with the referendum in the background. And in the meantime, housing crisis just gets worse.
Yeah, absolutely. And now this housing issue is specifically sticky on the Apple Isle. Down in Tasmania, let's take a look at the Hobart Mercury. Housing on hold is the splash down there tomorrow. The federal government's key $10 billion housing policy has been delayed once again after Greens senators voted to postpone voting on the legislation until October. Tammy Tyrrell there for the Jackie Lambie Network is a brand new senator doing great work in speaking specifically about, actual people that are without houses in places like Burnie, has been talking so passionately about this. And then Sarah Hanson-Young copping a mouthful as well. But this issue is also front of mind for the Canberra Times when it talks about the affordable housing hit is the headline there. The Greens teamed up with the coalition on Monday to delay a vote on Labor's signature affordable housing package, staring down threats of a double dissolution and pleas from the housing and homelessness sector to pass the bills. I think some old tweets of Greens leader Adam Bandt may come back to haunt him, because I remember when he was discussing things with the coalition, I think he said something along the lines of, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Let's see where that lands us at the end of this sitting week.